Alright guys, welcome to another edition of King Print. In this video here, I'm going to show you how to print, cut, and press heat transfer vinyl. Now, the heat transfer vinyl I'm going to be using here is going to be THERMOFLEX. THERMOFLEX is pretty much what I use, for all my different colors. It works pretty good. Okay, so from here, what I'm doing is I'm opening up a new file. I use a 200 DPI resolution. Now, the 200 DPI works pretty good for me versus your 300. 300, for some reason, it seems to go kind of slow when you try to export it and import it into your vinyl software. So from here, my height, I'm doing 15 inches, which is the height of my THERMOFLEX. It's going to be 15 inches, and the width is 18 inches. Now, you want to stay anywhere between 18 and 24 inches in width. The reason that is because if you go any longer than your 24 inches is when you load your thermal on your plotter, what's going to end up happening is it's going to start moving and shifting, and it's not going to cut correctly, so you're going to end up wasting that big piece of thermal. So I tend to stay anywhere between 18 and 24 inches. So that always works pretty good for me, no problems. When I first started, I try to fit a bunch of numbers on a big 5-foot roll, just to save time, but that didn't work. It was a lot of trial and error. So right here, what I have is my file here. I'm going to do my number, which is 58. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it here. I use a 7-inch number. 7-inch numbers works pretty good for me. I'm going to change the font. Your basic font is going to be collegiate, which is, you see everywhere, your pretty universal font. But what I like to use is American Captain, because, the collegiate font is kind of played out already. You want to go with something a little bit newer, a little bit fresher. I see the American Captain is, it's just a nice, clean, simple font that, works pretty good. So right here, like I said, I have a 7-inch font. All right, I'm going to do 7-inch on top, and right under that, I'm going to do another 7-inch number. So what this does is it becomes very economical, which is you're not going to waste a lot of thermal here. When you do a 7-inch, you might be thinking like, 7-inch is kind of small, but I've been doing it for a while, and 7 inches, there's never been any complaints. Once you put it on a shirt, it looks pretty good. And excuse me, you're gonna want to have a 1/2 inch on top and bottom. So when you go to hit that, put your thermal on the plotter, it works pretty good. You don't have your needle veering off anywhere. So right here, what I'm doing is I'm just doing a bunch of 58s. This is just like kind of like a tutorial thing. When I export it, I'm really not gonna use these 58s. I just want to show you how many numbers you can actually fit on a 18-inch piece of thermal here. So right here, what we have is, as you can see, I have all these 58s. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I charge $3 per number. So right here I have 6 numbers, so that's 18 bucks. On this 18 bucks, I have about a $4 piece of thermal. Okay, so that $4 piece of thermal, I got $14 in profit. Pretty nice little upsell here, and that's still not even counting the names. So let's say, for example, you're charging 10, 12 bucks for a t-shirt. Okay, you're adding the number, that's another 3 bucks. You add a name, that's going to be another 2 bucks. So right there, that's you're adding a good 15 bucks. I mean, a good $5 to whatever 10, 12 bucks a shirt. Let's say it's $10, you're adding extra 5 bucks. So I mean, your profit on each t-shirt goes up exponentially, and you're not putting in a ton of work. You're just adding a little bit extra into that. So I always try to advertise and put in that we can add a child's name and number, just because it brings in a lot of extra revenue. And from what I see is like on the smaller kids, like the 5, 6, 7 year olds, those always tend to sell a lot better than the older kids. So right here, what I'm doing, I merge everything. I merge this whole layer. And from the merge, what I'm going to do is I'm going to export it. I'm going to export transparent image. What I'm using here is Photoshop CS2. I know Photoshop CS2 is kind of old, but the reason I still use it to this day is for this very reason. Is it has this export wizard feature. If you don't have that, you can export it as a EPS or whatever file your vinyl software recognizes. But my vinyl software is I believe it's called VE Deluxe, and what it does, it recognizes a EPS file pretty good. So I use this export wizard, and it just exports it. You can export it, like I said, as an EPS, but for whatever reason, when I use this export wizard, it tends to cut a little bit faster. So, I just use that. So right here, I'm just exporting it, just giving it a generic name, finish that. So whether you're doing numbers or names or an actual piece of artwork, the process is the same. You're doing a piece of artwork, let's say it's a generic circle. Okay, you do your circle, you export, and the same thing. Whether it's 2 colors, what you're gonna do, you're gonna separate the colors the same way you would, your vinyl film. Your screen print film to put it on your screen. You separate the colors, and each layer you're gonna go ahead and export. Whether it's your EPS or your export wizard here. And so from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to my vinyl cutting software, and I'll see you on that side. So right here, what I'm doing is you got to open your production manager and your VE Apprentice, which is my vinyl cutting software. So what I use, I have the Vinyl Express. I think I bought this from Sign Warehouse way back in the day, and I highly recommend this. It's a red cell Vinyl Express R24, and I only paid $350, which included the software, it included the plotter, some vinyl, some other stuff. So right here, what I used is the speed. I go with 150, and the pressure I go with 140. The pressure is a big deal. Just depends on what plotter you have, and the film you're going to be using, the actual vinyl itself. So right here, the speed, you don't want to go higher than 150, just because of course you want to save time, but what ends up happening is it starts going off the rails. So you definitely don't want to do that. So I'm showing you right here what I'm using. All right, this is just a name file that I was doing. All right, so from here, what I'm going to do is you're going to click on the layer. You're going to go to solid fill. You're going to click on your little blade there. All right, and you want to make sure that your F is backwards. Okay, if you're doing like decal vinyl, like sticker vinyl, your F's going to be forward. If you're doing like a HTV, heat transfer vinyl, your F is going to be backwards. So you just want to remember that. So right here, what I'm doing is I'm going to go to show. So I click on that, and what it's going to do, it's going to give me like a dry run. It's going to go to left and all the way, just to make sure that my vinyl is good and it's not going off track in any way. So that was good. So I'm going ahead and I'm sending it. As you can see here, it's cutting pretty good. Another thing you're going to want to make sure is that your blade, you want a good blade on there. Not only that, you're going to want to make sure that, I'm not too sure what it's called, but as you can see in the bottom of the blade, there's like a little, I'm not sure what that is, like kind of like a little bumper. You're going to want to make sure you have like a clean bumper every time you use it. And The reason that is because the blade's constantly hitting that. So you want to make sure that you have a fresh one. You know, you get one every 3 to 4 months, depending on the vinyl that you're going to be using, the vinyl you're going to be cutting. So right here, as you see, like everything's weeding out pretty good. Having no problem getting this stuff weeded out. If you have any issues with your vinyl not weeding, that's going to be because of your pressure. So you're going to want to make sure to adjust your pressure. It just depends on your plotter and the type of vinyl you're going to be using. So right here, I mean, as you can see, it's just weeding out, you know, no problem at all. All right, so like again, what I was telling you, what I use is a THERMOFLEX. THERMOFLEX is like the best heat transfer vinyl that I've ever used. And as you can see there, you're gonna want to have you know, some type of, you know, trash, or what I use is I just have like a little box there on the side. And it might seem like common sense, but I mean, there are a lot of times that, you know, you're just going, you forget about it, you just start throwing stuff to the side, and before you know it, you have this big old you know, vinyl heap, you know, hill of trash that you can't get rid of because you got all these little pieces, and you know, stuff goes everywhere. So you're gonna want to make sure that you have, you know, some type of trash or something like that. And what I have here is the numbers. I kind of fast forwarded this a little bit to get these going a little bit quicker. Usually I use a weeding tool, but I couldn't find it this time. So what I'm using is just like a dull X-Acto knife. So right here, what I have is this little light tablet. And this light tablet is pretty good because if you notice, I know you can't really see that too well, but inside like the O's and the D's and, you know, the R's and all that type of stuff, you can't really see where the preparation is to get this stuff weeded out. So if you don't have a light table or, you know, a nice bright lamp on top of it, sometimes you're going to end up weeding the wrong part. So you're going to make a hole in your actual, like right there, the D, you're going to make a big old hole in that. So now you got to go back and you got to, you know, recut a D, and it's just real time consuming. So this just makes it a lot more simple. This light table, this light tablet I bought used a while back, you know, works pretty good for me. If you don't have a light tablet, just a nice overhead light to where you can see, you know, what you're doing. I highly recommend that. And another little trick is, if you have cut a little piece of thermal backing, like the sticky part, and what that's going to do is, as you're weeding out all these little pieces, they're going to tend, all the loose small pieces of thermal are going to tend to stick to your fingers. So if you try just to throw that into the trash, it's just going to stick to your fingers. You're not going to be able to get it off. So as you can see on the left side right there, I have a little piece of backing. So all these little pieces that I have here, what I'm doing is I just, you know, kind of dab them on the backing, and they just stick to it, versus just trying to, you know, throw it in the trash and you just flicking your finger and nothing coming off. So as you can see there, I'm just trying to knock everything out. Didn't really take too long. All these numbers right here